Hello everyone, you're welcome back to the Irish Mammy channel. Today we're in the Polytunnel getting a few jobs done. I think I said in another video that my brassicas had mostly gone to seed or bolted. Today we're going to sort them out, make a harvest of them even though they're not at their best. And hopefully we'll get time to replant the bed as well. I'm going to give you a quick tour of the Polytunnel now just before we start working. So this is the first bed I have. I actually took a notion of covering it over with newspaper to try and keep the weeds down. This bed is empty for hopefully for tomatoes now in a few weeks time. The next bed is cauliflower. Thankfully it doesn't seem to have bolted yet. It's not forming heads just yet, but I'm hoping in a short few weeks it'll have started to produce heads. And the next one is all broccoli, Cabbages type of broccoli. I have harvested 2 heads of broccoli already. They're quite small, but at least I'm getting something from them. So there's the nice small little head of broccoli there that's actually ready for harvesting in another day or two. But you can see how small it is if I put my hand to it, just to give you an idea of the size of it. So a little bit smaller than my hand. This is a head that I harvested there a few days ago, and you can see it's already producing little side shoots. So I don't take out the whole plant. So generally a Cabbages broccoli plant gives you one main head like that one. But if you cut off that main head, it will continue to produce little shoots. Just like this one here that you can see. So for another maybe 2-3 weeks, I'd say maximum, we'll still get a few shoots out of that. Probably altogether as much as the head produced itself. Who knows, maybe actually even more. The Polytunnel is getting quite warm now in the daytime, anytime the sun's out. So it may leave them less productive. It's just hard to know. Now the next bed is a mixture of different brassicas. So along this side I had kale. I think the variety was Siberian kale. I may have had 2 different kinds, I'm not just sure. But you can see one is living its best life there and gone to seed and producing flowers even at the top. But I will harvest the leaves of that today. That's the plan. Down the center here I had 6 or 8 plants, just down, kind of down 2 rows there, 6 or 8 plants of sprouting broccoli. They have started to produce. They'll I think there's actually 2 different varieties. So one variety, this one on this side, I was trying to figure out what the name of it is and I can't see it on my... Yeah, so the one that isn't producing is Cardinal, the one that hasn't produced yet. But I don't seem to have a name on the other one. Oh, I do, sorry. The one that is producing is Rudolph. So obviously Rudolph is an earlier producing variety of sprouting broccoli, and I'll just show you the sprouts here. So it's purple sprouting broccoli, I think I said that already. So you can see 2 little shoots there. I have harvested some off this plant already. And that will continue to produce for probably a good 6 weeks, if not more. These plants along the edge here were Brussels sprouts. They're obviously not going to produce Brussels sprouts at this stage, so they're going to get pulled out today. And the final bed I have here was all my cabbages. Now if you're familiar with growing, you will know cabbages are not meant to get this tall. All gone to seed. Every single last one of them is gone to seed. So today I'm going to make the most of this harvest. Well, you can see they're, you know, it looks like they're going to form a head on the very top, but what actually happens is they throw out a flowering shoot there at the top. So I'm going to harvest all the leaves of these plants today just to get something out of my overwinter growing. And of course these can be eaten. So I intend to harvest all the leaves that I can I'll bring them home and cook them up in a big batch and freeze them in portions in the freezer. It won't be a huge harvest, obviously, and while it might look good quantity wise, when it's boiled down, it will boil down to nothing or very little. But that's the name of the game. I always say in gardening, you win some, you lose some. This is definitely a loss, but I'm glad to say I still have broccoli. I have kale, sprouting broccoli, and hopefully I'll still get the cauliflower. It's looking good at the minute, but I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched. So while the cabbage was somewhat of a loss, I'm going to make the most out of it. And then the plan is to pull out those plants and replant with something else. I've actually bought some cabbage starts, so I'm going to plant maybe half of this bed with cabbage starts, and the other half I'm going to put in some new potatoes. I'll of course be growing new potatoes outside as well. I just don't have my area set up for planting them yet, so I figured this was one way of getting an early crop of new potatoes or early potatoes, and I'll go into that more when I'm actually putting them in the ground. So I'm just going to set the camera up and get on with harvesting these leaves and clearing out this bed. Okay, so that's the bed cleared out now. I just gave it a quick rake there, and I'm going to plant more brassicas in it and new potatoes in the other half of it. This bed won't be waiting for tomatoes, so I can leave these in as long as I need to, and hopefully they won't bolt on me this time. So that's the greens that I harvested from the plants. Got quite a good haul, but when it's all cooked it'll go down to a small enough amount, but at least it's better than nothing. So the plan is to cook this, chop it up, portion it into freezer bags and have it in the freezer then whenever I need a green vegetable. So that might seem like a little bit of work, and it is a bit of work. It'll be a couple of hours work probably today. By the time it's washed, the ribs removed, chopped and cooked, cooled, portioned, frozen, it ends up being a couple of hours work, but at the same time it'll save me a good few minutes, 20-30 minutes work for a dinner someday, and it'll certainly come in handy with all the running I do. So these are the cabbage plants that I'm going to be planting. I won't be planting all of them. I just picked these up in woodies. Now the one disadvantage to them is of course they're not organic, which is quite important to me, but if I didn't buy them I'd end up with none. I have sown brassica seeds at home and they are coming up well, but I hadn't planned on having to replant the brassicas in the polytunnel, so the ones I have sown already are for outside, and I still will do a main sowing of brassicas, but I wanted to get these going early in the tunnel. I mean, I'd hoped I was getting my overwinter plants. Obviously that's not going to happen, so I'm going to get these going, hopefully have them in about 8 or 10 weeks time, and then my next sowing will be coming on about 3 or 4 weeks after that, and the following sowing another 3 or 4 weeks later. The secret to having produce all the year round is succession sowing. Doesn't always work out, like in this case with my cabbage, but like I said, you win some, you lose some. I knew I was taking a risk when I planted these out in early October, or maybe it was mid-October, I can't just remember now, but like I said, you take a risk planting out over winter like that, even with the polytunnel to protect them. The polytunnel doesn't really do a whole lot for keeping off the cold or keeping out the cold in the winter. It's more for getting extra heat for the summer loving plant, or for the heat loving plants like your tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, chilies, things like that. That's where it really comes into its own, and is very useful. But as for winter growing, like I said, hit and miss. Having said that, I'm still happy with the yield that I've got, or will get now that I can see, with my purple sprouting broccoli, kale, Calabrese broccoli, and hopefully, fingers crossed, cauliflower as well. So out of 6 crops, I've got 4 crops out of 6, so it's not really too bad of a statistic really. So now I'm going to get these cabbages in the ground. Like I said, half of this bed is going to be planted with the cabbages. One variety is Caraflex, green cabbage, and the other is a red cabbage called Climaro. I've actually never heard of either of those before, but I'm sure they'll be fine. Obviously, if nothing, they might even do better, because they are being sold by a big box store, as they call them, like Woodies. So brassica plants tend to get a little bit leggy. I'll just use this one as an example. So you can see there is quite a bit of root before the cotyledon leaves there that are formed. So brassicas are one of those plants, of which cabbages is a brassica, that you can actually bury quite deep in the ground, and it helps keep the plant more stable, and not flopping about. Now obviously in the polytunnel there's not going to be much wind, but this weather with the sun shining, the doors do have to be left open quite a bit, so there could be a draft blowing through the place at times, and it would break the stalk of the plant. So there we are now, a couple of minutes planted those. As you can see, I have them planted fairly close together. I don't want huge big cabbages. I'm roughly gauging for about 1 per square foot, and hopefully that'll be enough just to get a nice sized head of cabbage for dinner for a family of 5. There's no point in being left over with no point in having a pile of leftovers. But another reason for that is it gives me extra space then to plant my new potatoes. So I have quite a length of bed left then for my early potatoes. Personally, I prefer potatoes over cabbage. Not that I love cabbage as well, but since I'm out of my own homegrown potatoes at the minute and having to buy them in the shop, I'm really looking forward to getting early new potatoes. Hopefully, so if this is the end of March, hopefully by the end of June I should have them, maybe even slightly earlier since they're in the polytunnel. I actually haven't grown early potatoes in the polytunnel before, but if they're planted outside, roughly 12 weeks later you get the harvest. So at the latest 12 weeks I should be starting to lift a few potatoes from the ground. So like I said, I haven't much experience growing potatoes in the polytunnel myself, but as you may know, there are 2 or 3 other polytunnels here in this same place, and I have seen lots of other horticulture experts growing these potatoes. The way they do them is they dig a hole in the ground, plant the potato in the hole and only just cover it, and as the potato begins to sprout, then they start to earth up the soil over the sprouts, and they keep doing that with the premise that the potato will send out more roots and eventually therefore more potatoes. That's the idea. So that's the method I'm going to do today. I'll bring you up closer so you can see what I mean, and then it'll just be another time lapse to get them all in the ground. Right, time to get to work. So that's the potato down in the bottom of the hole there, and I'm just going to cover it over ever so slightly, and as the potato sprouts up, then I will cover over with more of this soil that I've just dug out of the hole. The variety that I'm planting today is Charlotte's. And to show you the tag there, it's a nice early potato, actually quite flowery, which is what most of us like here in Ireland, of course, a flowery potato. Traditionally there would have been more of a waxy potato, but for some reason I'm finding they are quite flowery, which is definitely not a complaint. So now just to get the rest of these in, I'm keeping them roughly about 12 to 18 inches apart, I reckon, and I'm going to go 3 across, so 3 rows down this bed, 12 to 18 inches apart. That's the plan. We'll see if I can keep my lines straight. So that's them all planted in there now. The bed just looks a bit funny now. Looks like somebody was digging in the bed, like a wee creature was digging in the beds. You see me planting the potatoes there. I then went along and gave them a feed, a couple of different soil amendments, just because there was brassicas in it beforehand. Even though they went to seed, they would have still used up a lot of the nutrients, or some of the nutrients in the soil. So I gave them a light feeding this time, just in case. I don't want to, especially for the potatoes, I don't want it full of foliage and not enough roots. So I went easy with a high nitrogen feed, seaweed and manure. I'll show you a picture of it now in a second. And then I gave a light dusting of blood, fish and bone as well, just to help them all root in nicely, and of course help feed the tubers as well for the potatoes. These are the 2 feeds that I use here. This is seaweed and manure. It's a slow release pellet, feeds for about 8 weeks, and I do buy that from Quick Crop online, quickcrop.ie. And then the next one is blood, fish and bone, which you see me using in other videos as well. The garlic, and I use it on my strawberries sometimes too. Good for strong roots especially, so any root vegetables. And I know potatoes strictly are a tuber, so in that case they like high potash, which is also present in both of these feeds as well. This Westland blood, fish and bone can be got anywhere. I think I ordered this bucket from Quick Crop as well, but I'm sure you can get it in most garden centres, though I'm not sure if you can get it in this big bucket quantity, which is 10 kilos. So I'm going to consider that an afternoon well spent. Another job ticked off the list. Plenty more to go, but it'd be nice to get one done every so often, complete from start to finish. So often I do have to drop tools in the middle of the job and come back to it maybe a day or 2 later. So I definitely think this is a win, getting the job done from start to finish in one afternoon. So if you haven't already, I would ask you to like the video, press the thumbs up down below, subscribe if you haven't already as well, please. That's a really big help to my channel, helping it to grow as well. Finally, if you know someone who's starting to grow themselves, I would ask you to share this video with them as well. Share it on any platform, Facebook, Instagram, any of those. I would genuinely appreciate it. So that's it for this evening. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.